Nanapua o Hawaii Kupa amahope o ka aina.
Aloha Hawaii, this is Pokalainui and you are listening to Hawaiian Potpourri on radio station KWAI 1080 on your AM dial. We are broadcasting from the top of the Chinese Cultural Plaza here in Honolulu, Hawaii. It's a beautiful day out there, and today is Saturday, 31st day of March in the year 2012. Welcome to the program. We're produced by the Hawaiian National Broadcast Corporation. The opinions expressed in this program are not necessarily those of the staff and management of this radio station or of the Hawaiian National Broadcast Corporation. Welcome to the program. This afternoon, we'll be talking about a lot of international issues. We'll be talking about what's happening in Israel. We'll also take a look at let's see, there's an organization known as BRICS, B-R-I-C-S. It's a combination of a number of different countries: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. The total number in those countries come to over half the population of the world, and they have gotten together, and what they are essentially doing is changing the monetary system, getting off of the American dollar and creating a new monetary system. So we'll take a look at that, and that is part of the theme or the view as we watch the collapse of the U.S. empire, and now we can see it occurring very specifically as regards the economy. We'll also take a look at the Monroe Doctrine, dealing with the American concept that Central and South America is really the arena of the United States, and no foreign country, especially European countries, should be involved in any of these areas, and how we are seeing that move around, especially when Brazil itself participates and allow the Russians to come in and become partners with the Brazilians, as well as the Chinese, the South Africans, and the rest. And so we'll talk about the Monroe Doctrine and how it also was used in or against Hawaii, where the United States, basically following from that American exceptionalism concept, used it to justify their deciding how to manage Hawaii as well as the Philippines, Cuba, and other areas during the Spanish-American War. And what does this American exceptionalism, the Monroe Doctrine, in essence, the theme of America for Americans, and you can then juxtapose it with what was happening in Asia, where Japan was saying Asia for the Asians. What Japan really meant was Asia for the Japanese. And if you compare it with the Monroe Doctrine, the Americans are essentially saying, or the United States Americans are essentially saying, America for the United States Americans. So it's an interesting juxtaposition. And then here comes Ron Paul. He says, hey, what we really need is a policy of peace. Stop this intervention into other countries. And we'll take a look at the whole question of interventions into foreign countries and make a juxtaposition again with regards to Libya, with regards to Syria, the whole question about what we should be doing in Iran and how we should intervene, and then take a look at the intervention or the non-intervention policy of one of the worst human rights violators, which was Burma, and now called Myanmar, just to show you how atrocious their violations were. They even changed their name to try to get away from the attribution of human rights violations, and how that turned out, or is now turning out. So we have a lot of international issues to talk about, and we'll get to that. We do have a caller already. And so the caller must be very anxious, probably not to talk about international issues. Our telephone number here is 524-1080. If you are seeing this program on the YouTube, then it is pre-recorded, so don't try to call that telephone number. I should say that we have quite a bit of our programs, of our Hawaiian Potpourri programs, played on the radio, now on the YouTube. And if you went to either Hawaiian Potpourri, spelled P-O-T, P-O-U-R-R-I, sometimes people pronounces it as Potpourri, or under my name, Poka Lainui, you'll eventually, through some searching, you'll eventually come to my page and a whole list of these programs that go back to a few months ago when we started trying to record and preserve it through this recordation, these programs. Anyway, let's go to our first caller for the day. Aloha caller. Thank you for waiting. Welcome to the program.
Puka, thank you. Puka, Jeffrey Apaka announced early today that one of the youngest members of the Hemmings family passed away.
Oh, is that right? Jeez.
Yeah, that Aka. Puka, I don't know if you knew Aka, but
no, I did not.
He was the younger brother of Senator Fred Hemmings.
I see.
And he was number 2, from Heidi was the youngest, because it was really a big family, yeah? And Aka passed away early this morning, but he was working with the canoe. He was the coach of the disabled challenged people for paddling.
I see.
Across the channel and in canoe races. And unfortunately, he passed away early this morning, and he was only like 50. He was younger than you and I, Poka, I guarantee you.
Okay.
And I know that it's, I appreciate you letting me talk about it, because anybody that is connected to face page Jeffrey Apaka can look that up.
Okay.
Jeff has been such a champion, Poka, of so many different people locally.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just really sad. I grew up with Aka.
I see.
And I'll tell you something. If anybody can remember this, Aka was with Tommy Holmes when they took that 3-man canoe out to Avalanche, way out off the reef in Haleiwa.
Yeah.
And they caught the biggest damn wave.
Oh, is that right?
Some people might remember that because it was on, it was featured all around the world.
Yeah.
Dale Hope was in the number 1 seat in the front, right? And Dale just totally bailed, And he broke his arm,
As he tried to
bailing out.
get out of the canoe.
Yeah, and then Aka and Tommy was steersman, because Poka, anybody that knows Tommy Holmes and Aka Hemmings, they know that every time you watch the old series of Hawaii Five-0, the very end of the series is those guys paddling that 5-man canoe.
Oh, is it?
As they show the credits.
Yeah.
And Tommy is the steersman, and right in front of Tommy Holmes is Aka. And they're both gone, bless their hearts,
Yeah. Tommy Holmes was crazy. I didn't know him all that well.
You said that.
I didn't know him all that well. I did know him to a certain extent, and he was involved. He was very close with Kenny Brown. And, he tried to survive that ship. What was that ship? It was sitting out at the harbor out here in Honolulu, and he was trying to save that particular sailboat. It was a large event, Anyway, I had gotten to know Tommy Holmes that way. He knew my wife much better, as she had worked with Kenny Brown on the Friends of the Future programs, and Tommy was quite involved in that as well. But sad to say, I didn't know Aka. Yeah.
And Polka, it was so classic when I was talking to to Jeff, right? Mm-hmm. And he was saying, every single one of them, they're all crazy. I said, yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of that attitude, the go for broke attitude that carried over, I guess, from the 442nd. But I think it's in the soil or in the ground of Hawaii. Growing up and the crazy kids, especially when you're in ocean, you have this attitude of go for broke. And I think that it carries over. Tommy is a Haole boy, yeah, but from Hawaii.
I knew him well, Polka.
Oh, you did?
He was a close friend of mine.
Oh, that's interesting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Polka,
yeah. It was a Falls of Clyde.
Sitting many different times on the beach down at, we call it Tongs Beach, down at the end of Kalakaua.
Okay.
Out on the coast side when he was carrying his yellow legal pad, which I still have to this day for my own notes. And I would be surfing, or I would come in, and Tommy would be sitting there, and he would be making notes, and I would say, and this is when I had, Polka, this is when I realized, I said, Tommy, what, you're always carrying that yellow legal pad around. What are you writing about? And he said, oh, Robbie, I'm writing a history of the Hawaiian canoe.
Oh, that's interesting.
Which I have in my library, Polka, but, I had no idea at the time, right? And I'm just so glad to know that I was just be sitting there and, he and I would be talking, and I was curious enough always, all the time, just wondering, Tommy, what are you writing about? What are you saying? What are you thinking? And he was just so beautiful, Polka, in the sense that, and I mean, on the beach, he and I just, nobody else around, and he'd say, oh, Robbie, I have thoughts about this, and I found out information about, the ancient Hawaiians and the canoe and everything, and that's all he was doing, Polka. I just, just absolutely phenomenal. And then, of course, Tommy was so close with Aka Hemmings.
I see.
They were
that's
they were
interesting.
both. They're both together now.
Yeah.
In another place, but
Okay, he had tried to survive the Falls of Clyde. I think that was the name of the boat. Yeah.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah, and he was raising a campaign. Yeah. He was raising a campaign to get money to save it. I think after he died, I'm not sure what happened to that effort.
But Polka, remember that he was able to set up that whole maritime museum when he was still alive?
Yeah, I think that was it. That was on the Falls of Clyde, wasn't it?
Yes.
The maritime museum. That's
not
correct.
on the Falls of Clyde, but apparently, just a separate part of connected.
Yeah, was it at Aloha Tower?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And just all kinds of wonderful history. And then he was able to, he worked so hard, Polka, to, get all the high mucka big money to help, support and build a lot of stuff that was so important to our maritime history. Just wonderful guys, Polka.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for at least bringing this information to us. Although I didn't know Aka Hemmings, I know it appears a lot of other people have known him, and we're thankful that you have called us.
Because since Aka just passed away early this morning, the people that knew him loved him. Others, how it goes,
Yeah.
It'll be circulating around.
Okay. Well, my condolences to you, to his family. You are listening to KWAI 1080 on your AM dial. This is Poka Lai Nui, and the name of this program is Hawaiian Potpourri. And this certainly seems to be a potpourri of topics that we have already talked about in the last 20, or even less than that, perhaps 15 minutes. The passage of another Hawaiian son, and a recall of other friends of his during his active days in Hawaii. The other topic that we were just about to get into, but hadn't really grasped onto it, are international arenas and what's happening in the international arenas. One with regards to Israel, and how Israel is preparing for war with Iran, and how it is basically attempting to dumb the Israeli public down with the expectation that Iran is not able to really defend itself, so that the population of Israel will be safe should they decide to bombard Iran. Well, I think they may be in for a surprise, and it's not only my opinion, but this is the writings of Gareth Porter, who talks about this issue. This article comes out of IPS News Service. Gareth Porter is, I believe, one of the best writers in international affairs, especially in the area of the Middle East. And it's Dateline, Tel Aviv, March 29. The government of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been telling Israelis that Israel can attack Iran with minimal civilian Israeli casualties as a result of retaliation, and that reassuring message appears to have headed off any widespread Israeli fear of war with Iran and other adversaries. But the message that Iran is too weak to threaten an effective counterattack is contradicted by one of Israel's leading experts on Iranian missiles and the head of its missile defense program for nearly a decade, who says Iranian missiles are capable of doing significant damage to Israeli targets. The Israeli population has shown little serious anxiety about the possibility of war with Iran, in large part because they have not been told that it involves a risk of Iranian missiles destroying Israeli neighborhoods and key economic and administrative targets. Quote, "People are not losing sleep over this," Yossi Elfir, a consultant and writer on strategic issues and former director of the Jaffe Center for Strategic Studies at Tel Aviv University. He told IPS in an interview, "This is not a preoccupation of the public the way the suicide bombers were a decade ago." Elfer says, one reason for the widespread lack of urgency about a possible war with Iran is that the scenarios involving such a war are so nebulous in the eyes of the public that it's difficult for them to focus on it. Aluf Bin, the editor-in-chief of Haaretz, told IPS in an interview, "There is no war mentality," although he added, "that could change overnight." One reason for the relative public calm about the issue, he suggested, is the official view that Iran's ability to retaliate is, quote, very limited. Jeffrey Goldberg wrote in Bloomberg March 20th that some Israel officials believe Iran's leaders might choose to play down the insult of a raid and launch a handful of rockets at Tel Aviv as an angry gesture rather than declare all-out war. But Uzi Rubin, who was in charge of Israel's mission defense from 1991 to 1999 and presided over the development of the Arrow anti-missile system, has a much more somber view of Iran's capability. The, quote, bad news for Israel, Rubin told IPS in an interview, is that the primary factor affecting Iran's capability to retaliate is a rapidly declining cost of increased precision in ballistic missiles. Within a very short time, Iran has already improved the accuracy of its missiles from a few kilometers from the target to just a few meters, according to Rubin. That improvement would give Iran the ability to hit key Israeli economic infrastructures and administrative targets, he said. I'm asking my military friends how they feel about waging war without electricity, said Rubin. The consequences of Iranian missile strikes on administrative targets could be even more serious, Rubin believes. If the civilian government collapses, he said, the military will find it difficult to wage a war. Rubin is even worried that if the accuracy of Iranian missiles improves further, which he believes is bound to happen, Iran will be able to carry out pinpoint attacks on Israeli air bases, which are concentrated in just a few places. Some Israeli analysts have suggested that Israel could hit Iranian missiles in a preemptive strike. But Rubin said Israel can no longer count on being able to hit Iranian missiles before they are launched. Iran's longer-range missiles have always been displayed on mobile transport erector launchers. As Rubin pointed out in an article in Arms Control Today earlier this year, the message was clear, Rubin wrote. Iran's missile force is fully mobile, hence not preemptible. I won't continue reading, but the article came out of the Interpress service. It's a news service not connected with CNN or ABC or what are those other United Press International, UPI, or the AP. And I found this source of information much more helpful, and it sort of gives you a balanced look at the overall situation. So what is this all about? By trying to play down the effectiveness of Iran to respond to an attack, the military influences in Israel would be more likely able to convince the public it's okay to attack Iran. Iran is not Iraq. Iran is not Afghanistan. Iran is that country that took down not one, but 3 drone planes of the CIA. Not only took it down, but did not crash it, did not fire on it and destroy it in the air. But they intercepted the electronics within the drones and brought it down so that they could inspect it, they could look further into it. Iran is very advanced. For Israel to believe that they can go ahead and attack Iran without repercussions, they will be in a load of surprise. Now, if Israel does take this action, their expectation is that the United States would step in and support Israel, because now there's war with Iran. The American public, I don't think, will support such a move, although it's hard to say when there is such an uproar about war, and it will depend on Obama's response or whoever is president at that time and how they drive the American news media and the rest. But it's going to be a hard expectation for Israel to expect that the United States will step in and join in the defense or in the attack on Iran. And why the attack on Iran? Because the Israelis are saying that the Iranians should not develop a nuclear potential or a nuclear weapon. notwithstanding the fact that Israel does have nuclear weapons provided by the United States. So you have a lot of hypocrisy going on there. I would suggest that should Israel attack Iran, and should the United States, irrespective of what the United States do, what will happen is that Palestine will begin an all-out attack, it seems to me, at that time against Israel. You will have the whole region exploding because of the Israelis' inability to essentially follow what Ron Paul is or has been saying, but he's not the only one who has been saying it. And that is that we really need a policy of peace and not further war efforts on how we're going to take over other nations. I would suggest that this would be an area of concern that you may want to pay attention to, this situation in Israel and the politics that are being played there. It's not being played only there, but it's also being played in the United States election for president because of IPAC and their attempt to influence and essentially get a Republican as a president who is more anxious to get into a war than Barack Obama. And that's no set aside for Barack Obama, because he himself has shown to be very war prone and to a great disappointment, to my great disappointment. Okay, enough said of that. Let's see. Let's take a brief break.
Kaulana nā pua o Hawaii, Kupa'a mahope o ka aina, Iki mai ka elele o ka loko ino, Pala pala anunu me ka paka. Pane mai Hawaii moku o ke ave, Koku ana honoa o Pilani, Ka ko'o mai kaua I o mano, Pa'apu me ke one o ka kuhi hewa. Aolea e kau I ka pulima, Maluna o ka pepa o ka enemi, Ho'ohui ai nā ku ai hewa, I ka pono sivila a o ke kanaka.